I want to talk about what happens and what's happening when we set out to achieve some sort of goal, and then we reach that goal, we reach that achievement, and we think this is where we're going to feel satisfied, where we'll feel on top of the world, but instead we feel this sense of lack and emptiness and maybe even some depression. And this phenomena has been talked about as being called gold medal syndrome or post-Olympic blues, as it occurs in Olympians who dedicate their lives towards a certain pursuit. They reach the ultimate goal they were aiming for. They get the gold medal. They're on top of the podium. They step down and they feel hollow. So what's really happening here? Some people believe that this is just human nature, that humans climb a tall mountain, they achieve that, then they want to climb an even higher one. I don't think that's completely wrong. I think we have that drive within us, and that's not a bad thing. But what's happening here is something's out of alignment. If it's just part of our nature to want more and to want achievement, to want challenge, I think that feeling, if it's true to our nature, then is an exciting feeling. It feels like a growth experience. But what's happening here is something that's bringing tension. And if it's bringing tension, I believe that's a sign it's not in alignment with us. So what could instead be happening? What I think is happening is that we engage with challenges like this. We engage with processes or trying to reach certain marks as a means to an end instead of an end in itself. And so what does that actually mean? This is an idea that has been around for a long time. You can go back to some Buddhist texts, and there's a story about this student asking the teacher basically of like, what does somebody who's enlightened do? And the quote is something along the lines of, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. And there's a few different interpretations of what this quote actually means. What I take out of it, and what I think can be one possible interpretation, is that when we think about having a life that's full of joy and satisfaction and everything we desire, we think we're doing these amazing things. We think that we're owning the business and it's profitable, and we've completed the marathon at our goal time, and that we hit these things, da 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 da. But what this quote is saying is that it's not about the achievement, that you can experience that level of satisfaction in the ordinary, in the everyday life. And not only are you able to, that I believe that's the means through which we are able to experience satisfaction. If we're able to approach what we do day in and day out as an end within itself, that we do that thing just to do that thing for no other reason, but to find satisfaction and presence in just doing that thing. That is what helps us create a life where we ultimately are feeling satisfied, quote unquote, enlightened, whatever way you want to take that term. And so when we search on the podium for enlightenment, it's really available to us at all times, in the even ordinary times, which is, to me, exciting. That can be with us all the time. It's not just reserved for these moments of achievement. And so what does this actually look like? I think I found a little bit of what this could look like as I was a collegiate athlete and I was training for track and cross-country races. And I started to develop a sense of just joy for doing the day in and day out stuff, going for runs, doing warm-ups, having meals with my teammates. And partly I think it was out of necessity, because I wasn't, I was a solid collegiate athlete, but I was top of the pack. And I think I had to realize it's not going to be about achieving those things. I'm not ever going to finish first at nationals. This has to also be about just enjoying what I have here and what I get to do. And that's what this looks like. Finding an end within itself is I'm going on this run and I'm going to notice the wind as I'm running. Notice the wind on my skin. I'm going to notice what colors of green I see in the trees and the sound of the little stream that I run by. Just being in it instead of how is this getting me closer to running a fast race, and this is really going to help me run a fast race, being so focused on the future. And that right there is where I think the biggest problem comes in when we approach something as a means to an end, is we're bringing in time and we're bringing in future-based thinking. Whereas an end within itself, if you even just think about those words, an end within itself, I think that's an incredible image. Because what comes to mind for me isn't the start and finish. It's just that. There's just a nowness of it. And I've felt that. And maybe you felt it too in moments where you're so incredibly present. I've felt that the boundaries of time no longer exist, and that moment has always been and will always be. And there's just this forever nowness to it. I'm not worried about it passing or coming. It just always is. And that's where I think the real beauty is of an end within itself, is that there's just this staggering presence to it. Let's talk about how to actually cultivate this. And like all things, I believe this starts with developing awareness. So just noticing when you're approaching something, notice, am I doing this just to do it, or am I reserving my own satisfaction and joy for an outcome? And then let that be there. You don't have to change that. That gets to be present. I don't think that's a bad thing, but question it, and look at, could there be benefit in just enjoying this as it is? And then just trying it out, just trying to be present with what you're doing and noticing what it can be like just to do the thing, Kind of like that mindfulness skill of one thing at a time. But in this practice, being careful not to do something because you want to feel this enjoyment and this presence, because then ironically you're going back to making it a means to an end. I want to mention one more benefit to approaching ordinary living tasks, the process of achieving a goal as an end within itself. One more benefit to that, and what we've listed so far, is finding satisfaction and presence in the day-to-day and not experiencing that gold medal syndrome once you end up on your podium or achieve a certain outcome. Those are great benefits. But I have a hunch another benefit is that our actual outcome, the product of whatever it is that we're doing, is better for us. And that might not necessarily mean better in the way that you have in mind. I believe better in the sense of more aligned in what's ultimately best for us. Because if we're approaching something with such presence, we're putting up much less a barrier to whatever creativity, whatever authenticity is flowing through us, and then therefore that shows up in the final outcome. So I want to end with one more story, and this also comes from the Buddhist tradition. And it's this student asking their teacher, what's your practice? How do you find the peace that you have, the enlightenment that you have? And the teacher said, I eat and I sleep. And the student says, well, how's that any different than ordinary deluded people experiencing all this suffering? And I'll read it exactly. The teacher says, ordinary people, when sleeping and eating, are bound by 100 ropes. When sleeping, they don't sleep. And when eating, they don't eat. Constantly thinking about 1,000 things. Hence, why it's different. So may we eat when we eat, sleep when we sleep, and approach things as an end in itself. Or maybe just a thing, starting off with that for today, maybe just for a minute, approaching something as an end in itself.